I don't usually do videos like this. This video may get my channel canceled, but I think with just everything that's going on right now, with the statement that George Lucas made, with this Acolyte trailer that came out, with all the rumors that we heard about the Acolyte coming true, or at least showing themselves to be true rumors, to be facts in regards to the show, I felt obligated to at least make a video about my analysis and what I really see going on here. So this is just going to be me talking. I'm going to go through some points here. This is not scripted, so of course I'm going to be speaking from the heart. Okay, I'm going to be speaking from everything from my review of the trailer to what George said to where Disney is at. So it may not necessarily be in that order, but that's what we're going to talk about. So first, I want to go over this Acolyte trailer. See, a lot of people are hating this trailer or a lot of people are hating the Acolyte because of it seemingly is retconning episode 1 by saying this when Coyote says that the Sith have been extinct for millennia in the Phantom Menace. A lot of people are upset that this show seems to retcon that statement. Now, a lot of people are upset over things of that nature, meaning they're upset over the timeline of things. They're upset of certain characters maybe not being in the show. They're upset of the quality of the show, kind of like the quality of the past Star Wars TV shows we've gotten. I.e. Mandalorian Season 3. I.e., Kenobi. And I think people are afraid of it being of lesser quality like those shows were. But here's the real reason why a big majority of the true Star Wars fan base hates what we're seeing with this trailer. Okay. If you're a casual fan looking into Star Wars right now, when I mean by casual fan, I mean if you're someone who got into Star Wars later on in life, or liked the idea of Star Wars, maybe you were a kid when you saw, the prequel trilogy or the original trilogy, maybe you were a kid when you saw those films, but you didn't really understand what Star Wars was. All you saw were explosions and lightsabers, and you just saw the action sequences, and you liked the cool music. You like certain characters, but you really didn't understand the overarching theme that is in Star Wars. And a lot of people hated the prequel trilogy. A lot of so-called fans hated the prequel trilogy, but you see, they didn't understand what Star Wars was. They didn't understand the overarching plot of what Star Wars is about. Okay? And so this is different from people saying, I don't like the prequel trilogy because, of this reason or that reason. They say a bad dialogue. They say it's because, I didn't like certain actors. Their reasons for are, I didn't get what I expected. But the reason for disliking the Acolyte is very different from the people who are saying this is not what I expected, because the prequel trilogy was George's vision for Star Wars. George, when he was writing the prequel trilogy, he knew where he wanted to go with it. He is an artist, okay? And if you're an artist and you paint a painting, not everybody's going to like your painting. You like it because you painted it, and that's the way you wanted to do it. But nobody is ever going to come to you and, be honest about it and basically say, well, I actually wish I could paint like you. I actually wish I could paint that picture like you painted it. People usually speak negatively about something when they are jealous, or when, they feel as if they could have done it better, but they never do anything. But they don't create. They're not artists. You see, so most of it is, again, negativity coming from a place of, I wish I could do better than that, or jealousy, or you simply don't like it because you feel like everything is up to you. Okay, that's how prequel haters are. That's not the kind of dislike that we're talking about in the Acolyte. And I see a lot of people say, well, you Star Wars fans never agree on anything. People hated the prequels, people hated the sequels. You got to understand something. There are two types of people, and I'm going to get into the Acolyte, but I'm giving you a preface here. There are two types of Star Wars fans, and really, there are really just two types of people in general when we're talking about the Star Wars universe. Okay. There are people who, again, are casual fans, and they liked it for external reasons, meaning it made them, they saw the action, they never seen anything like it before. They liked that aspect of it. But internally, it's not really making them think. It's not really making them look at the broader picture. Okay. But then you've got Star Wars fans that see what Star Wars is and see the broader picture that's being painted. Okay. Those are the two types of Star Wars fans that we're dealing with here. And people always say, well, again, you guys never agree on anything. You got to understand something. There are two teams here. There are two teams. There is a team that only wants things based off nostalgia, i.e., they saw the original trilogy and they didn't want the prequel trilogy to be what it was. They wanted to see the original trilogy 2.0. And then there are Star Wars fans that love the original trilogy, that love the prequel trilogy, but hate Disney Star Wars. And they hate Disney Star Wars because Disney Star Wars does not adhere to the blueprint or the overall picture of what Star Wars is supposed to be. So when we're talking about the Acolyte, we're not talking about people who had this hatred for the prequels and then they're just taking that hatred and hating the Acolyte. No, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the Acolyte literally being far, far removed from what Star Wars ever was. And people say, oh, well, it's just because you guys are racist, you guys are sexist, and you don't like it when there's diversity in Star Wars. Listen, when I watched that trailer, I saw so much diversity, which isn't in and of itself a bad thing. Different people with different skin colors being in the same show or movie, that has nothing to do with why we dislike it. Sure, there are some legitimately bad racist people out there, but there are some legitimately non-racist people that love Star Wars. Okay? And so this is not about racism. Your race is not the central focus of why we dislike this trailer. Because diversity in and of itself is not bad. We are all from different parts of the world, different regions. Okay. There's nothing against that. Okay. There's nothing against having a female character be the main character of a Star Wars movie or TV show. There's nothing necessarily wrong with that. But there is a central focus of Star Wars. There's a blueprint for Star Wars. And if the characters in that TV show or in that movie within the Star Wars universe, if they do not line up with the Star Wars overall overarching plot and formula that existed in Star Wars, it's not going to work. It didn't work with Rey. It didn't work with the sequel trilogy. Okay? It just, when you go against what the formula is, If you're going to make a pumpkin pie, if you add chicken into a pumpkin pie, you've messed up the formula. You've messed up the recipe. Okay? You can't just start throwing things in there and saying, well, this is a traditional pumpkin pie. No, it's not. You've messed the formula up. That's not supposed to be in there. Now, someone may want it to be in there, but when that recipe came out, chicken was nowhere involved in making that pumpkin pie. And right now, we have foreign objects, foreign, I would say, ideas. We have these foreign agendas that are in Disney Star Wars. And these things never were a part of it to begin with. The real reason, and if you're smart and if you have an inkling of morality about you, you will understand what I'm saying. Disney's Star Wars is woke. And people want to say that's BS, but the reality is it is woke. But it's not woke because it has people of different skin colors. That's not the reason it's woke. And it's not woke because there's female characters in it. That's not the reason it's woke. All those things are fine. If they are done right and properly, they're fine. Leia was done properly. Padme was done properly. Even Ahsoka was done properly. I know a lot of you guys don't like the Clone Wars, but that was George's creation, like I just went over. That was his vision. People say, oh, Dave Filoni was in charge of most of that. No, it had to go through George every episode. George had the final say. If you don't believe me, go watch the deleted scene of Revan and Darth Bane and the Clone Wars scene. Go watch the deleted scene in which the son, one of the dark side son of Mortis, is talking to these dead Sith Lords. And George called Filoni and said, yeah, I know we talked about having these Sith in there, but we just can't do it in that way. And so they didn't put it in there because George had the final say. So if you, again, this is a side note, but if you think that Filoni just went AWOL with it, then you're sadly mistaken. George had control of the Clone Wars. He had the final say. But even Ahsoka was done properly. People didn't like her when she first came out, but she matured and grew as a character, and it was a natural progression. There wasn't an agenda. It was just Ahsoka just happened to be an inexperienced youngling who had to grow up. And when you see her in season 7, or I should say even season 5, then you're like, this is someone who grew up. And that can be admired. Both men and women can admire that. That's called being mature. That's Star Wars done right. If the characters are acting naturally, and if there is this formula, this right original formula, if that is present, it will work. It will work. But if Star Wars has agendas in it, if it has, people say, well, no one has ever told me what woke even means. And they want to use that argument. And they want to say, well, explain to me what woke is. I will explain to you what wokeism is. Wokeism is a cultural and sociological Marxist movement that undermines the fabric of society. So the formula that exists in society to make a society grow, woke undermines that. Woke actually makes people hate each other. And for a society to function, people can't just go and kill each other off. That would not be, if a country went and committed a civil war, okay, and they just have civil war after civil war after civil war, that society is not going to survive. Wokeism actually undermines all of what society actually, the glue that holds it together, wokeism destroys. It is a Marxist movement. If I could define wokeism in a summary, it's a agenda that goes against the very nature and biology of human beings. It's an ideological mechanism to undermine and to undo the glue that holds society together. And if you say, well, Colby, we're talking about Star Wars here, we're not talking about wokeism. Well, wokeism is in Star Wars. And I'm telling you why we don't want that in Star Wars. Wokeism says that there is no good or evil, that everything is relative, that whatever you think, well, that's your truth, that there is no objective truth. There is no objective wrong or objective good. Wokeism says that it biologically or biology doesn't matter. It's how you feel. And if you feel as the opposite sex, then by every reason you're the opposite sex. When biology, the very essence and the very study of real biology says something completely different. You cannot change your biology. Your feelings cannot change your biology. It is an ideological mechanism used to break down a system that has worked for many, 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 many years. And once you break down that system, you can then rebuild that system with a corrupt system. You can break down the current system that has worked, and you can formulate your own system, much like how what Palpatine did in Revenge of the Sith during the Clone Wars and after the Clone Wars, broke down the Republic and rebuilt an empire. That's essentially what wokeism is. It seeks to replace, okay, the things that matter, the real things that matter. Getting married, having children, having a family. The family then becomes a part of, your because you're in a family. Okay, you bring a certain morality, a certain way of life that you bring into the workplace, that you bring into society. And if that's I would say, if it's healthy, it benefits society. If it's not healthy, it doesn't benefit society. But the family is crucial because that is where you develop, okay, the way of life, the way that life is supposed to function. It starts in the household, okay? And so that's where boys learn from their dads to become men. That's where girls learn from their moms to become women. And if that environment is healthy, it benefits society. And if it's not healthy, it doesn't benefit society. You say, how is this talking about Star Wars? Because if I am to tell you how it does not belong in Star Wars, I have to tell you what wokeism is, because a lot of you don't understand what it is. You think that it's right wingers being mad at the left, and that's all that it is. No, it's not that. It really is not that. So now that I've told you, people say, I don't, someone's never given me a definition. So therefore, what is woke? I just gave you the definition. That is the definition. Okay. It's again, ideology that's destructive, and it seeks to undermine what creates a functioning society. Because to be honest with you, if everybody became gay, that society would not function. No children would be born. There would not be healthy men and healthy women. Okay? So, again, wokeism seeks to undermine what works in society. Okay? And if you wonder, well, why would anybody want that? Why would anybody want to destroy society? Because we have evil people in high places doing evil things, and they have their plans. Okay, I'm not going to get into that, but that is what it is. It's essentially communism for every intents and purposes. And if you notice, there's a lot of woke people that actually want communism. But I'm gonna leave it there, and we're gonna get back to Star Wars. But I wanted to explain that because not everybody knows what it is, and they hear about it and they think that it's just something that we're politically upset over. It's not about. This is not about politics. This is about human society. This is about the functionality of human society. So in Star Wars, there is a very strong sense of good versus evil. But in Star Wars, in George Lucas's original Star Wars, it wasn't necessarily about evil people versus good people. It was about an individual who could choose to be good or evil. George Lucas said in an interview, there are two types of people in the world. He said there are compassionate people and there are selfish people. And you can be a compassionate person, but you can end up becoming selfish and selfish and selfish and selfish and selfish. And eventually, you're going to end up on the dark side. So you can become a very corrupt, very evil individual. So it is about good versus evil, but it's more personal. It's about you are, as a human being, fickle. And sometimes we do things that are very, very bad. And that nature is in us to do bad things. And so, yes, it is about good versus evil, but it goes deeper than that. So when it comes to the Jedi, people think the Jedi are these super strict monks, and they're so restrictive, and they're really the villains. Well, to be honest with you, the way George wrote it, the Jedi were the good guys. But just as an individual can choose to give themselves to corruption or not, the Jedi are the same way. And there were times in the history of the Jedi where they lost their way. Okay? And so in the prequel trilogy, the Jedi were losing their way. They were taking part in a war in which their senses were being clouded. Their duty as Jedi was being clouded. They were losing their way. But that doesn't make them bad. It makes them human, really. And I know there's different species of Jedi in Star Wars, but different races or whatever from other planets is what I mean. In Star Wars, and but what I'm saying is it's a representation of how fickle we can be as people. Like, even at our best, we can still mess up. Okay, and were the Jedi restrictive? Yes. Were they always that restrictive in Legends? Well, Luke's Jedi in the expanded universe, Luke got away from that super restrictiveness, but still maintained a new Jedi Order. And that Jedi Order survived. And that Jedi Order, so but Luke still held on to the principles of the Jedi. He still held on to the principles of the Jedi of the Old Republic. That part didn't change. Okay, so yes, the Jedi were fickle, but that doesn't at certain points, but it doesn't make them bad. So this argument of, well, the Jedi are restrictive, and in this argument of the Acolyte, well, she's trying to the Leslie Leslie the lesbian says that if she's going to paint the Jedi as the bad guys and she's going to make the Sith the good guys. Well, the thing is, even if the Jedi aren't perfect, that doesn't make them the bad guys. But the Sith are the bad guys. Okay? With the Sith, the reason why this show is a disaster already, before it has even come out, is because it's not just, if you were to make a show from the Empire's point of view, okay, that's been done before. I mean, it's been done in video games and comics, but the audience knows that the Empire is evil. And George, when he was writing the Empire, yeah, the Empire, the soldiers of the Empire were loyal to their cause, but they were evil people. Okay, they wanted evil things. They wanted dominance. The stormtroopers that burnt down Luke and Leia's aunt and uncle, burned down their house, incinerated their bodies. Those stormtroopers were loyal to the Empire, and they thought that, this is what we do as Imperial soldiers, but that's evil, you see. You can lose your way so much to where you end up becoming an evil person. And the Sith are evil. You cannot paint them as the good guys. You can explore their Sith order. You can have a show about the Sith. But to make an agenda and say that the Sith are the good guys and the Jedi are the bad guys, and purposely create that narrative. That's like strike number one, is you're going against the formula. The formula is the Sith are not the good guys. They're not. Formula number two, or I should say strike number two, is that this real world political ideology has steeped its way into Star Wars content. You see, when Lucas was writing Star Wars, there were some real world, I would say, nuances or essences that was happening as far as the political turmoil that was going on during the Vietnam War. And how societies like Germany can become an evil regime, an evil empire. And why do people hand their rights over to dictators when, that dictator is just going to take everything away from them? Like, those were things that existed in Star Wars, but you see, that wasn't an agenda. That was a story that resonated with people because that story is timeless. In every single era of time, there's always been a dictator or dictators. Rome, okay? Again, we talked about the 1930s and 40s, Stalin, okay, and Mussolini. In every era of time, there's always been bad leaders, evil leaders. And a society where, I should say, there's always been those people that would resist those evil leaders. And we can root for those people because those people don't want an evil dictator to take over. They don't want an Adolf Hitler to take over. That's why so many people resonate with World War II stories. From, when we hear about, heroism, from the Allies versus the Axis, we resonate with those stories because that is good versus evil. That's resonating with us. That's something that throughout all of history, man has had to deal with. And so that works in Star Wars because that's not a particular ideology or a particular agenda being thrown in there to make you believe in a particular political party. See, what's going on right now in woke Disney is they are wanting you to support the left. They are wanting you to support the wokeism, the ideology that's being promoted from, honestly, the Democrats. This isn't about being, if you're a right wing or a left wing, this video is not about that right now. I'm telling you the real reasons as to why a lot of us do not like Disney's Star Wars, and why why really, if you have even an ounce of morality, why you shouldn't either. In Star Wars, right now, in Disney's Star Wars, they're pushing you to choose their political side. George was not trying in Star Wars to make you choose between being a Republican or a Democrat, or to make you support the ideologies of the Republican Party or the Democratic Party. George was telling a timeless story of the forces of good versus the forces of evil, in which anybody in any time can relate to that. Okay? That is the blueprint of Star Wars. And it's about people who can choose right or wrong. But in Disney's Star Wars, in the Acolyte, okay, they in the trailer said that this is not about good or bad, this is about power. So automatically what they've done is they've taken away the formula. They've said that doesn't exist. There is no good and evil in Star Wars anymore. It's just about power. Well, to be honest with you, evil people, evil dictators are usually the ones that say that. They usually say there is no objective good or bad. It's just about power. It's just about what I want. Evil people are usually the ones that say that because they don't want to be held accountable at all by anything. So it's a nihilistic thought process, and it's a nihilistic mindset, meaning these people don't believe in anything other than their own quest for power, their own personal quest for what they want, a very selfish and narcissistic quest for power, pleasure, or whatever benefits them. That is what is in Disney Star Wars now. And that is when that character made that comment in the trailer, that automatically should have been a red flag. There's been a lot of red flags in Star Wars, Disney Star Wars, I should say. A lot of red flags since 2015. But I think that most of us are aware of those red flags. I think most of us are past the red flags and we just now see it for what it is. But there's a lot of people who think that we're hating it because we're all bigots or because we're all sexist or we're all racist or whatever the case may be. But the problem is that's not real. Now, there are people out there, I'm sure, that really are bigots. And, and I know there are. But the thing is, when I'm talking about here is I am talking about the legitimate reason as to why, I don't even want to say most of us, but the ones of us that are really, really seeing what's going on here, who really love Star Wars and are really upset with what Disney is doing, that's who I'm talking about right now. Casual people are usually the casual Star Wars fans are usually the ones that view Star Wars as just cool sci-fi movies. They usually hate the prequels because the plot of the prequels is too complex for them to understand. They just want flashy lightsabers. They want explosions. They want X-Wings. They don't want to see a story about a dictator's rise to power. They don't want to see, it's too deep for them. They don't want to see that. So then when they see us complaining about wokeism in Star Wars, they're the same people that say, I've been a Star Wars fan, I like the original trilogy and this and that, and I don't understand what the big deal is. And, why are you guys making a big deal out of this? I just see, and it's like, because if you can't see what the big deal is, then you were never a Star Wars fan. You did not know Star Wars enough to know that everything that Disney has done has broken the formula. If you add chicken to a pumpkin pie, again, the original creator that made the pumpkin pie did not add chicken. If you add chicken to it, you may like it that way, but if you say I'm going to make a pumpkin pie authentic, you're not going to add chicken to it. Because that didn't exist in there before. You're adding something foreign into it that didn't exist. Okay. And so when we're talking about the Acolyte, that's what we're talking about. There are so many things in Disney Star Wars and in the Acolyte that are breaking the formula. They've broken the formula since The Force Awakens. And I'm not just talking about things that can't happen in lore or in universe. I'm talking about political agendas, specific political agendas, that when you watch it, you're like, this is clearly a tactic or it's simply there because of Disney's political standing and the message that they're trying to convey. They want you to be on board with that. This isn't about, telling a timeless story. This is about them basically trying to get you to buy into their political ideology. It's no longer about Star Wars storytelling. It's simply about telling a narrative to make you support a political side. And that was in Star Wars. Even yes, the prequel trilogy was very political, but the politics in the prequel trilogy, yes, were they real world concerns? Were they real world dangers that the prequel trilogy conveyed? Yes. The prequel trilogy really explained how the deep state works, really. It really does. But the thing is, that type of storytelling resonated with so many of us because that has happened in society before. It's not George saying be a Democrat or be a Republican. He wasn't saying that in the prequel trilogy. He was saying if you don't preserve your rights as a nation or as a country, or as a nation and country, or even in your own town or state, if you don't preserve your rights, okay, there are people that want to come, and he said this in an interview, that don't play by the rules. And these people will come and try to take your rights away. Okay? Whether you're a Democrat or a Republican. Okay? That was the point of the prequel trilogy, is rights and freedoms are good. That is what helps the society to grow. And when you see your rights trying to be taken away, when you see evil agendas and evil leaders, rising to the surface, be warned. That is what Star Wars was about. It is about good versus evil, but it goes deeper. And that's why a lot of prequel trilogy haters don't understand. They don't understand that. But I'm not talking about necessarily prequel haters, although they have a huge part to play in the part of the problem that's going on right now. Okay, they can't get past the certain dialogue and they can't watch the prequel trilogy as George wanted it to be. They can't get past that. And so now they are complaining about Disney Star Wars, and it's like, the thing is, and then the outside world sees that and they say, well, you Star Wars fans are in such disagreement. And it's like, no, there are literally reasons why not to like Disney Star Wars. And it has nothing to do with being indecisive, not knowing what you want. There are literally reasons as to why, as a Star Wars fan, I do not like Disney Star Wars. It's not because I'm indecisive. It's not because I don't know what I'm seeing. It's because there's a formula to Star Wars. The prequel had it. The prequels had it. The original trilogy had it. There's a formula. Luke had to make a decision about if he was going to choose evil or good, just like Anakin did. Anakin fought against the forces of evil, but he succumbed to evil himself. Luke got caught up in somewhat of the same struggle, but decided he wasn't going to succumb to it. So you have two contrasting characters that are operating within the same formula. Do you understand? And the Acolyte, nobody is doing that. Nobody is adhering to the formula that's set before Star Wars. They want to destroy the formula, and they want to say, this is our narrative. It's not even Star Wars. It's a propaganda movie is what it is, or a propaganda TV show. Nobody can, all of us that are heterosexual and don't believe that, and I'm just going to say it, that don't believe the gay way of life is natural. And this isn't about me hating anybody. I don't hate anybody. I am telling you that I can disagree with your lifestyle. But hating you, that's when you hate somebody, you see, that's a strong passion to really want somebody to be hurt, right? And I don't want anybody I don't wish any ill will towards anybody. Okay? I do not agree that that lifestyle is healthy, beneficial to society. I don't agree that it's not natural. But I don't hate you as a person. I can disagree and dislike your choices, just like how I would dislike someone who shoots heroin, or dislike the fact that they're destroying themselves with heroin. But that doesn't mean that I hate them as an individual. So I've just cleared up the fact that that's my stance. And yet, I dislike Disney Star Wars because they are trying to I hate Disney Star Wars. I will say, I do wish ill will towards Disney Star Wars. It needs to be burned to the ground and rebuilt from the ashes. But at this point, I do not know if that's possible. But every show that we're going to get, every movie that we're going to get is going to have this political agenda in it. And so I've told you the differences between George Lucas's Star Wars and Disney's Star Wars. And Disney's Star Wars is a clear narrative. The narrative is believe our political side. And George's Star Wars, your political side, it was kind of it was ambiguous. It didn't really matter what your side was. It mattered about your nation. It mattered about your freedoms. It mattered about good versus you choosing good or evil. It had personal choices. That's what mattered. Okay? Believing in something higher than yourself, the force, spirituality, God, really, belief in the fact that there is a God. And that's what mattered. It was principles that help a society function. Okay? In Disney Star Wars, there's nothing there that anybody can agree to unless you are a part of that political party or that a political agenda. The only people that will watch this show and really enjoy it are the people that are they have no morals and are completely apathetic and they just want to see lightsabers. Or people that are actually on that political agenda or on that side of that certain political agenda. And they like it because that's what they want to see. Okay? And the casual fans will probably enjoy this show. And these are the same people that hated the prequels. The same people that didn't understand the overall formula of Star Wars. These are the same people that loved the sequel trilogy. They will go and see this and they will bash true Star Wars fans and say, you guys are bigots. You just can't see. You can't see. And it's like, no, there is a literal and legitimate reason as to why true Star Wars fans do not want to see wokeism in their Star Wars. Because wokeism, I've told you what it is. Wokeism in Star Wars, the formula doesn't mix. Because in Star Wars, it's supposed to be about good versus evil. But wokeism says that there is no good versus evil. You do what you want when you want to do it. And it doesn't matter what anybody else says. And, oh, by the way, the Jedi are really the bad guys. That's, when George Lucas wrote Star Wars, the Jedi were the good guys. A little boy could watch Obi-Wan in 1977 and say, this is an old, wise Jedi, and see him as a force for good. Because that's who Obi-Wan was. So, and then you saw in the prequel trilogy, again, that the Jedi are imperfect. There are still good Jedi. But you've got to be careful. They had to be careful. Their senses were being clouded by the dark side, which happens in real life. People can lose their way. Okay? But in Disney Star Wars, none of that matters. None of it matters. Okay? None of it matters. It's a very nihilistic, it's really anti-Christian. It's nihilistic. It's anti-George Lucas. It's anti-Star Wars, period. It's essentially everything that is wrong with our current democracy right now. What's going on politically? The political leaders that make up our society now that are, really not doing their best of job. That's you're seeing that those type of people running Star Wars. And it's about a political message. It's not about us wanting to see a timeless battle between good or evil. It's about them trying to get us to buy into their narrative. And that is the reason. That is the real reason as to why I am in no way, shape, or form in agreement with Disney Star Wars. You have to think about this objectively. You can't. People, I've seen a lot of people on YouTube and Facebook talk about this, and it's like they're always missing the actual reasons. They're always like, well, I don't like it because the Sith are not supposed to be around at this time. Well, I don't like it because where's Yoda? I don't like it because where's Plo Koon? Or I don't like it because of some external reason. And, or I don't like it because it's woke. And people say, well, you're a bigot. And then they can't respond to that question. They can't respond to when someone calls them a bigot. They can't respond to it. They don't, because everybody's missing. They're missing the point. The point is that it's not about the Sith or the time frame, and it's not about being racist. It's literally about what Star Wars is, the formula in Star Wars, and a political agenda coming in and saying, believe in our political agenda. Don't even watch. Yeah, we're going to slide our agenda in there so that you can start to vote for us in the real world. That's essentially what it is, a vote. We're going to make you essentially break you down, and the more you watch it, it's going to break you down to where you'll start to vote for us in the real world. When you watch the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy, you don't leave watching those movies feeling like you're going to go vote for anybody. You just saw films that were good, and you enjoyed them, and they made sense to you, and you got a good story out of it. When you go and watch Disney Star Wars, there's this feeling of they want me to side with their political agenda. You're not in it to watch a Star Wars movie. When you see wokeism in Star Wars, you say, see, it's there because of the people running Disney. The people, their own political stances are in Star Wars, and they want you to support them, or they're essentially saying, we own this now. And so if you want to continue watching Star Wars, you've got to support our agenda. It's no longer watching Star Wars. It's again, it's a propaganda campaign. And, that is the truth. And, there's going to be a lot of people who say, you're a Republican, you're a conservative. My political stance on this, my own personal political stance doesn't matter right now. Okay? It doesn't. What I'm telling you is there are real legitimate reasons as to not like Disney Star Wars. And it has nothing to do, I have no problems with children or people of different skin tones and that's not even an issue. That's irrelevant. That's fine. That's okay. And to me, that's not even something that anybody should ever bring up. That's okay. That's fine. That's life. That, you see what I'm saying? If it was just all, the prequel trilogies were diverse, and then you got different, like Plo Koon, you had Mace Windu, you had Yoda. I mean, there's all these diverse Jedi and beings in Star Wars, and that was fine. That's okay. That's fine. And if there's women in Star Wars, that's okay. That's fine. That's not an issue. Okay? The problem is, do they fit the formula? Does Rey fit the formula of Star Wars? She picks up a lightsaber and she uses it. She's had no training whatsoever. And in episode 8, apparently, Luke teaches her nothing except how to abandon the Jedi. And then she's able to go and face down Kylo Ren and Snoke, and then seemingly, and it's like, so that doesn't fit the formula of Star Wars. Okay, because there's no training, there's no practice, there's no relationship to the Force. That doesn't fit. If you had a man in that position and he had no training, it still wouldn't work because it doesn't fit the formula of Star Wars. Right now in Disney Star Wars, they're doing things that do not fit the formula. The formula meaning there are certain ways, in as far as in lore, there are certain things that you can and cannot do in Star Wars. Okay? And I could get into 50 million of those things, but I'm not. But in universe, in lore, in the continuity of Lucas's Star Wars, there are things that you can and cannot do. One of those is that Sith cannot come back as a Force ghost. The Sith don't return as Force ghosts. Okay? That is reserved for the Jedi. They can come back as illusions, hallucinations of the dark side, but their actual keeping their identity is something that they can't do. That's reserved for the Jedi. Jumping to hyperspace inside of a hangar, you cannot do that in George's Star Wars. The hangar will explode or your ship will explode. You can't do that. But in The Force Awakens, they did that. Now, I'm not sitting here, again, too much concerned about the external things. All those things are a problem. The real issue is there are bigger issues. There are bigger fish to fry in this, other than those small things. As far as the Sith appearing before the Phantom Menace and this and that. Okay, listen, I understand the problem to that. I understand both arguments. Well, the Sith were thought to be extinct, but they really weren't, or the Sith really were extinct. And I see both sides, but although that is an issue, that is a small issue compared to the bigger issue that I've just spent the last 50 minutes talking about. And so, again, I had to put my 2 cents in here. I have been just all over YouTube, seeing so many videos, reading so many comments, Facebook, Instagram, and I'm just like, and I usually don't get on social media at all like that. I really don't. But I wanted to get a feel for how people were responding to this. And there are a lot of people that do not like it, and I have to say I'm in agreement. I don't like it. I don't. And as far as George's comments, I'll just spend a few minutes on George's comments about him supporting Bob Iger. Well, here's the thing. Apparently, George and Bob Iger had been friends for a long time. Okay. George has expressed that he doesn't like what has happened to Disney Star Wars. And I believe him. In Bob Iger's book that he wrote, he said that George was not happy at all about the changes and the plans that they did instead of going with what George wanted. And he went on to say that, George was not okay with that. And, then George later on says that he sold Star Wars to the white slavers that go and mess all these things up. And listen, George is not happy about Star Wars. What George did by backing Bob Iger, at this point, I have to say this. Number one reason is that George, at this point in time, doesn't care. He doesn't care. And, what he said didn't surprise me. It surprised a lot of people. Everybody felt betrayed. But I saw that comment and I said, this was probably going to happen sooner or later. The man is almost dead. Okay. Now, I don't know why he would have cared about the money so much, seeing as he's got a lot of money, and this is not me hating on George, but I am making what I feel is a pretty valid point here by saying that, he doesn't care. This is like being in hospice and wanting to make sure all your loose ends are tied up as far as your kids get money, your grandkids get money. That's what this is right now. Okay. And, do I agree with it? No. Is that kind of a sellout thing to do? It depends on how you look at it. If it's a set, people say, well, he sold out. Well, you have to understand that he did say that he was done with Star Wars. He said that it's like a relationship, that you have to let it go, and then everything in you's going to want to, go back. And he said you can't do that. You have to let it go, just like how when you break up with somebody. So George has stated that, he's done. So when I heard that, it didn't surprise me. I'm like, I don't like the fact that he backed Disney. I don't. But at this point, I feel as if it was inevitable. He has quite literally checked out. He checked out some time ago. And, maybe George does support their narrative. Maybe George does support their agenda. It's a possibility, very possibility. And, and if he does, then, shame on him. But, I thought about that, and I think there may be a little truth behind that. But again, I don't know. When he talked about Star Wars or making magic is not for amateurs, everybody thinks that that's talking about pelts. It really could be talking about Kathleen Kennedy. We really don't know the dynamic of what he meant by that. Who is he referring? Is he referring to pelts? Is he referring to Kathleen Kennedy? We don't know. So, anyways, guys, I wanted to just talk about this and give you guys a little bit of, the true nature behind of what's really going on here. I've talked for an hour. I wasn't planning on talking that long, but I did. And so I want you guys to, share this video, subscribe. But honestly, you don't have to do any of that. I just wanted to tell you that, this is really what's going on. This isn't about, there's bigger things, there are deeper things going on here. It's not as simple as, the external stuff. I'm talking about the deeper stuff, the powers that be, the people that are controlling Disney. That's what I'm talking about. And so anyways, guys, I hope you guys have a good day, and I'll catch you later.